And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside once again by Andrew Johnson. And Andrew, Week 10 is now on the horizon in the NFL as we just had Week number 9 pass us, and a lot went down in Week number 9. We had a couple of injuries at the quarterback position. We saw head coach get his first win in his NFL coaching career. We saw a couple of teams getting some, convincing wins to, prove to the entire league that maybe they are for real in terms of being a Super Bowl contender this year. And on the other side, we're still looking at some of these other teams and saying to ourselves, are they for real? Will they make that push they need to in these last couple of weeks of the season? Because now, as of this week, we only have 9 more weeks left in the NFL regular season. So we're at the halfway point in this year's season. So it's time to make it or break it for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, because talk about the quarterbacks, and this is a fun little trivia fact for everyone here. You may not know this one. This is the first time in NFL history that a player born, there were no players born in the 1980s did not make a pass.
Oh, really?
So in the last 20 or 30 years of the NFL, this is the first time that a player not born in the 1980s did not make a pass. All the quarterbacks were born in the 90s or later.
I'm trying to think of who's the oldest quarterback that threw a pass this week.
It was Russell Wilson.
It was Russell Wilson.
Yes, sir.
No, they didn't play this week.
Oh, I don't think. Okay, then who was it then? Because Russell Wilson, I think, is the oldest active quarterback, and if they didn't play this week, because remember, there's no Kirk Cousins.
Rodgers. I think Rodgers is the oldest. No.
Yeah. But I mean, like actually play that's played more than a snap this season.
So let me think. Who had to have been the oldest quarterback that snapped the ball?
Think about the snaps this week. You had no Kirk Cousins, who's 35.
Derek Carr. Is it Derek Carr?
Derek Carr, I think, is the oldest one, and he was not born in the 80s. He was born in 1991.
I'm trying to think of the teams. I think I want to say it's Derek Carr, maybe Geno, but I'm not confident in that.
Well, here are the quarterbacks or the players. It was Will Levis, Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Sam Howell, Tua, Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, C.J. Stroud. There's really no old quarterbacks here. That's it. Like it was like this is the first time I think the last 20 years that there was not a player in the 1980s that did not complete a pass. So kind of a changing of the guard right now.
Well, we're experiencing a youth movement definitely in the National Football League when it comes to the quarterback position. But whether that be because of that being the case of some of these teams wanting to do that, or because of some injuries taking place along the way, that has taken certainly a part of that. And one of the guys you mentioned was Will Levis, and he got his second official start in the NFL after having a really great first career start against the Atlanta Falcons the week before. Going into primetime on a short week in week number 9, going against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, in a game where the Titans had a chance late in this one to win the game after it looked like the Steelers had wrapped it up. A touchdown for Deontay Johnson, his first touchdown in I think 4 or 5 seasons, and it had been a while since he had scored, so he was finally able to get into the end zone. And Will Levis, to his credit, was able to get his team down the field. They got themselves into the red zone towards the end of the game, but unfortunately for the Titans, he throws a late interception to Quan Alexander, and the Steelers, again, Johnson, get outgained, pretty much outplayed most of this way against the Tennessee Titans, but they once again find a way to win this one. They go to 5-3 on the season and hand the Titans their 5th loss by the final of 20-16. So the Steelers are also in the mix for that playoff spot right now. A team that I'll give you credit. You said at the beginning of the season that you could see them making the playoffs. I thought they would still be around the wild card race, but did not think they could be in a playoff position. But here they are. Currently, if the season ended today, they would be in the postseason. So it's been a great job so far for Mike Tomlin and his crew.
Yeah, no, we've done a fantastic job. He's kind of like a guru in the modern era. No matter what happens, he seems to finish above 500, and he's on pace to do that again. So you got to tip your cap to him at the end of the day because he's done fantastic with his limited offense, and he has a very stout defense to hang his hat on as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing for the Steelers is Kenny Pickett. The thing about him has been the first 3 quarters of the season, mostly when he plays a game, his QBR is so down the dumps, and it's really lackluster. But once that fourth quarter hits, Kenny Pickett just turns into another guy, and it turns into another gear. And that happened again in this game because if not for that touchdown drive in the fourth quarter, the Steelers would have lost this game. And for them, thankfully, they got a good running game as well from both Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. They were able to mostly contain Derrick Henry for the most part, and they did a good job of maintaining DeAndre Hopkins for him of a multi-touchdown week the 4 days prior. And like we said, now 5-3 on the season, so they're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, and let's talk about teams that a team that may not be in a good spot right now. The Dolphins losing the international game versus the Chiefs this past Sunday. Kansas City could have stopped playing at halftime. They would have won and outscored them. That's exactly what happened. Kansas City had a
Yeah,
couple quick touchdowns. Travis Kelce was pretty much neutralized the entire game in a game where he passed Tony Gonzalez with the all-time receiving leader for the Kansas City Chiefs at the tight end position. He puts up a dud. 3 receptions on the entire day.
right. And I think another thing too is you mentioned how the Chiefs, this game could have ended at halftime. They couldn't really do anything in the second half. That's exactly what happened. They really bad second half for the Chiefs almost cost them this game. The Dolphins got into Chiefs territory late. They had a 4th and 10. Unfortunately, a bad snap
Ended the
cost the
game.
Dolphins this game and ended it for them. But realistically, it was mostly the first half that got the Dolphins into this mess. I mean, they were down 14-0. They had an unfortunate fumble that was returned for a touchdown just before the half that gave the Chiefs a 21-0 lead going into halftime. And the Dolphins had to try to fight their way back from that deficit. And to their credit, they did that in the third quarter, scoring the 14 points that they got in this game. But they were just not able to get the game tying points, and it unfortunately cost them. And now they have that running stigma against them, in which all of their wins have been against teams under 500, and they have not been a team that has been so far impressive on the season. So they need to try to find a way to get some wins against a quality opponent down the stretch of the season if they want to be a Super Bowl contender this year.
I mean, let's be real. Neither of these teams look like Super Bowl contenders. I know by default the Chiefs are probably a top 5 team in the NFL because I've said this multiple times. There's no really good, true teams in the NFL. There's not a team like we've seen in the past, like let's say the Patriots, or we've seen that Rams team in recent history. It's like, oh, that's the team. Here they go. There's nothing we can do to stop them. That doesn't exist this year. It seems like it's very wide open. The Chiefs don't seem like a good team. The Dolphins certainly don't seem like a good team. And we're gonna go into January kind of wondering who's even gonna win the Super Bowl, let alone who's gonna make the Super Bowl.
Well, I think it's perfect segue into this next game, Johnson, because I think this team right now has looked the most impressive throughout the past couple of weeks. I think other than that one game against the Steelers, they have been a really good team all season. And that's the Baltimore Ravens. And man, they put up a showing again once this past weekend against the Seattle Seahawks, embarrassing them by the final of 37-3. Their defense has been unbelievable this entire season. They've had a great rushing attack. Keaton Mitchell, their undrafted rookie, had 138 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 298 yards in the game as a team. And Lamar Jackson didn't even have to throw a touchdown pass in this one either, only throwing for 187 yards. And this is the second time we've seen them face an NFC opponent, and we saw them against the Lions as well, and they embarrassed them in that one as well. And you got to think right now, if there's a team that you have to like odds-wise to potentially be that top favorite for the Super Bowl, it might just be the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, they looked pretty insane the last couple weeks. I will not hold that loss of the Steelers against them. One, it's a divisional game, and two, the
A lot of
Steelers
drops in that
defense.
game.
Yeah, it's a lot of drops. You can focus that on in practice for the rest of the season. Hopefully, you get better in the next month or two when it comes to dropping passes. But the Steelers defense is unheard of. I don't want to say unheard of, but it's on another level compared to everything else. Um, and they had a early loss to Jacksonville, which they seem to be an okay team. So they didn't really lose the teams that are, oh my god, these teams are bad, whatever. But they've dominated teams that we think are good. We think
Right.
the Seahawks are good. We think the Lions are good, and I think they have. I have to agree with you. I think they have the best resume. The Eagles don't stand out to me. The Niners would have stood out to me if they had, not lost 3 games in a row. If they maybe even went 1-2, maybe because at okay, but it's in a little bit of a slump right now. But the Ravens look like they're the best team right now, and you hope they're not peaking too early. That's what you have to worry for right now, because if they peak too early, it's gonna be an early exit in January for them once again.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think if they peak this early, then it could lead to a early end of the season. Remember, just a couple years back, they had the number one seed in the AFC. Lamar Jackson won MVP, and they lost in the first matchup against the Tennessee Titans. So that very well could happen again if this scenario plays out. Hopefully, for their case, that does not happen. But they're playing some really good football in this so far in the season, and I think upcoming this weekend, a divisional matchup with the Browns, another good defensive team. That's a good test for this Ravens team because you're going to potentially see a low scoring game with the way those two defenses have been playing so far on the season. So we'll have to see who comes out on top on that divisional matchup because, as you mentioned before, divisional games are not easy to win in the NFL, especially in the AFC North, considering all four of those teams right now, if the season were to end, would be in the playoffs.
Yeah, if there's two divisional series you don't want to play in, the AFC North is definitely the worst, and I would say the AFC East is definitely number two. Definitely not number one, but those are the two divisions I can think of where everyone kind of beats up on each other.
Yeah, I would tend to agree because I think mostly the other divisions either have one or two good teams, but AFC East, I mean, I don't know.
They
That's
seem
tough.
a little fraudulent right now.
I
That's the
think
problem.
the AFC East is not in a good spot either right now, so I don't even know if that's the case.
I'm just talking about
Um,
teams that beat up on each other all the time.
yeah, I guess so. I guess so, but
Because no one's beating up on the Chiefs. No one's beating up on the Niners, really.
right, the Chiefs dominate most of their opponents in their division. That's the problem, except for Denver's, which was surprising, but besides the point. Um,
But
but
anyways,
we'll shift over to our next game, and a game that had some, intrigue going into it because obviously it was the matchup of two backup quarterbacks. The first game for the Vikings without Kirk Cousins. They went with Jaron Hall, the rookie out of BYU. And for the Falcons, they made their quarterback change and going with Taylor Heineke replacing Desmond Ritter. And this is a game in which we saw Jaron Hall on the first drive. He looked pretty impressive to start out. He was 5 for 6 for 78 yards, ran a couple times as well. But one of those runs did lead to him getting a concussion, and Josh Dobbs had to enter the game. And this was, remember, Josh Dobbs just entered on this team not a couple days ago because of the trade deadline, getting traded from the Cardinals to here. And remember, Johnson, I said I didn't think it would take too long for Josh Dobbs to get involved into this team because you have to think realistically, can you get to the playoffs with a rookie like Jaron Hall or a guy like Josh Dobbs that has proven himself so far in the season? And boy, did he ever prove himself in this game against the Atlanta Falcons. The fourth quarter, in particular, probably one of the best drives I've seen by a guy that just entered a team in recent memory, maybe in the history of the league. I mean, there was a fourth and long. He had to run himself just to get the first down. That was a play in which he had to break multiple tackles to get the first down conversion. And then finally, he gets a touchdown pass to Brandon Powell with 22 seconds left. And the Vikings, despite the injury to Hall, despite having a quarterback for just a couple of days, beat the Atlanta Falcons by the final of 31-28. Josh Dobbs definitely has now proven himself to be the starting quarterback of this team. It looks like he'll be the quarterback for the rest of the way, even with the injury to Jaron Hall now. And they're now at 5-4 in the season, and they're still in the wild card race. They right now would be in the playoffs if the season ended. So it will be up to Josh Dobbs to get them into the postseason. But you've had to have liked what you saw from this game from Dobbs on just short rest.
absolutely. I won't even call it short rest. I would call it learning a completely new offense. He didn't even know the names of the guys in the huddle.
Right.
That's the reality. And he comes in, he wins you a football game in dramatic fashion, to say the least. It's a really good, feel good story for Josh Dobbs, too, because I can't remember the last time we had a quarterback that kind of has his background, his story. Uh, Taken the fourth round 2017, really doesn't get a fair shot. He kind of does. He's kind of in and out of the league. He's on 5 different teams in the last, I think, 2 years.
I think in the last year.
And the last year he's been in 2.
I think it's been 5 teams in the last season. He was on the Brown. So I'm looking at it right now. He was on the Browns
In 2022.
in 2022 and 2023. So that counts for that. He was also on the Lions in the practice squad. He was he played the end of the season for the Titans last year to get them into the postseason.
So yeah, I guess it's been okay the last year, but the last 2 seasons combined.
Right, the last 2 seasons combined, absolutely. So he's been going around the league, and he, to his credit, has continued to get himself better. And this is by far his best season in the entire NFL, and he is putting up numbers that you wouldn't expect out of a guy like this. I think he's top 10 in passing yards right now on the season.
I mean,
he's doing really good.
At the end of the day, he's still an SEC quarterback he led very good Tennessee teams.
Right.
So he has that kind of pedigree, he has that background, but you kind of expect something out of year one or year two. I get it, right? He's backing up Big Ben the first year or two. That's a given. Goes to Jacksonville. Well, they're getting Trevor Lawrence soon anyway. Okay, goes back to Pittsburgh, backs up Big Ben, kind of back. He's been around the league for a little bit, and it just shows that he never gave up hope. He never really gave up in himself, and now it's paying a ton of dividends for him. I wonder what kind of contract he'll get in the offseason now, because he has proven that
Right.
he is at worst, he is a high quality backup that can win football games. I'm not saying you're going to win because of him, but you can win with him.
He's kind of like your bridge gap quarterback right now, where
Absolutely.
you think you can still make the playoffs, but you still might be wanting to look for that young
You're
rookie to
paying for a
develop.
wide receiver,
Right.
a couple linemen, a couple guys on defense, maybe a corner, and you can't really afford that quarterback. Kind of want to squeeze the last, like you said, playoff juice out of your players. Josh Dobbs is your guy.
Right. I think he might be in the conversation in the offseason for maybe a potential starting gig
And
for
he'd be
a team
comeback
that might
player
be
of the
looking for a
year.
quarterback.
I would say
I
he'd be comeback player of the year. If
I
Gino
think
did
he
it,
could. I think he could be. I think he's eligible technically. I think he would have to be eligible. I'll tell you this: if they make the playoffs, the Vikings, he'll definitely win the award. He still could win it even if they don't make it, but I don't know who would be up for the award. Also, I think we would have to wait and see who they would put up for that award.
right.
But he's definitely in the running for it for sure. And you have to like what you've seen from him. Remember, he got the Cardinals their only win in the season so far. He's now got the Vikings a big win, putting them in a position to stay in the wild card race, and they have a huge game upcoming this weekend with another team that's also in the wild card race, and we'll talk about that in our mushing hour later on the show. But we have to talk about this next game, Jonathan.
Game of the year?
Probably, in my opinion, might be the game of the year. I mean, a lot of drama went into this game in terms of how it went down, and it didn't look like it was going to happen like that the way the first half happened. The Buccaneers went into halftime with a 17-10 lead against the Houston Texans, and the big story going into the second half was the Texans lost their starting kicker, Fairbairn, to an injury. So they had to go with a backup running back in Dari Ogunbowale. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know if I did or not.
He did a better job than I would have.
I remember him from, I believe he went to Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. But besides the point, he was a good running back for the Badgers. And he had to play the emergency kicker. And believe it or not, he did make a kick in this game. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the story of this game, Johnson, CJ Stroud, by far his best game in the pros. 30 of 42, 470 yards, 5 touchdown passes on the day, setting the record for most passing yards in a game set by a rookie, breaking the previous record by Andrew Luck, and gets a game-winning touchdown pass with just 6 seconds left. And keep in mind, this was after Baker Mayfield and company got down the field and got a touchdown with 46 seconds left. So Stroud and company had to go down the field in in 40 seconds, 75 yards on 6 plays to get the game-winning score, throwing a touchdown to Tank Dell, and the Texans go to 4-4 in the season with a 39-37 win over Tampa.
Absolute pandemonium in that stadium. They couldn't believe what was going on. You feel bad, though, for Baker Mayfield because he can't be left out in this conversation, which he did what he had to do to win the game.
He did.
You would think 40 seconds, no timeouts, you're golden, right? There's no way this rookie quarterbacks could go the length of the field, not only get a field goal, which is hard enough to ask for in 40 seconds, but get a touchdown is unheard of.
Right.
And Baker Mayfield's having an under the radar solid season. I realize he's had a bad game or two, but I feel bad for him because he's at risk of losing his job, even though he has 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 65-ish passer rate, completion percentage, 240 yards a game. That's a starting caliber quarterback in this league. But
Yeah,
if Tampa Bay loses out and they can get a Drake May or Caleb Williams, you think they move on from Baker?
I think if you're in that position where you get a rookie quarterback, I think you have no choice but to consider it.
It's a sad situation, but because Baker does deserve that. He has proven he's a starter in this league. It may have come a little bit late, but he's proved it.
But remember, we thought about this with Tampa Bay going into the season. They were either a borderline playoff team because of the division that they were in, or they were going to be in the position to potentially draft a quarterback. And their offense has not been bad this season. You mentioned Baker's had a really good season. The issue for Tampa, which had not been an issue the past couple of seasons, was their defense has gotten really bad. And it showed in this game they could not stop any of the Texans' wide receivers. 3 receivers in this game went for 100 yards. Noah Brown, 153. Dalton Schultz, the tight end, 130. Tank Dell, who's been emerging for the Texans at the receiving core,
Scoring that touchdown as well.
114 yards. All of them getting touchdowns in this game as well. Nico Collins also had a touchdown. And that's been a problem for Tampa Bay. I think the defense is really getting, showing away or from the Baker Mayfield and company's best game of the season by far, offensively wise. And they now dropped to 3-5. They're still in line to potentially win the division, but I think this week against the Titans is going to be a make or break week for them, because if they lose and drop to 3-6, then you're really starting to talk about them being in the position to try and maybe potentially trade up in the draft to try to get their next rookie quarterback.
Only time will tell. We could also light a candle for Baker and hopefully he lands on a team. Listen, if Josh Dobbs will get signed, I think Baker will get signed, no problem as well. But let's talk about the next game. Let's talk about those Philadelphia Eagles, right? Now,
well, go ahead. I'll let you
the way this game ended, the NFL wanted to hand this game to the Cowboys. Let me paint you a picture, right? The Eagles are up by about a touchdown, right? Was it 4 points, 5 points?
They won by 5.
They're up 5 points, right? Dallas has a couple timeouts, 2-minute drill, right? They get into the red zone. They don't get into the red zone for like a crazy Dak throw or a long run by Tony Pollard. They get in of penalties, which are at best egregious penalties. The NFL was trying to give the Cowboys this win, right? Even though I'm not an Eagles fan, I'm not a Cowboys fan, whatever. They finally get in the red zone. I think they're at the 11 or 12 yard line. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick.
So they had a long 3rd and 20, I think. So they were like around the 20 something yard line on the final play of the game.
Right. So
they got the completion and they got stopped at the 5 yard line.
Right. But I'm saying when they get into the red zone, right?
Right.
They get to around the 10 or 11 before the penalties that kind of drove them back, right? Right. So they get to around the 10, 11 yard line, right? They got 4 tries. This is easy. Couple penalty here or there, long sack. Now it's 3rd and 20 with like 10 seconds left. What the hell happened? Dallas, even though they were trying to hand this game to them on a silver platter, hey, take it. It's yours. Dallas is like, can't do that. Best we could do is give our fans another heartbreaking loss in dramatic fashion. Dallas loses to the Eagles by 5, and the question remains, what are they going to do with Dak this offseason now? Because he clearly isn't the guy there.
Well, I think a bad third quarter also played into a factor. Dallas was leading in going into halftime, but the Eagles took advantage of the third quarter and were able to hold on in this game. Dak, numbers-wise, had a pretty good game. I mean, 374 and 3 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had a monster game as well for them. But there's still concerns around for the Dallas in this one. The offensive line kind of struggled against the Eagles. Defensively, they were iffy, I'd say, at best against the Eagles. Receivers, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith both had touchdowns. I would say they did a pretty good job overall defensively against the run. They stopped the Eagles a bunch of times, except for a tush push here and there from Jalen Hurts. But yeah, Dallas is going to be an interesting spot in the offseason, because if something doesn't happen in the postseason, those questions are going to start emerging even further, because they've been going on the last couple of seasons when it comes to Dak.
Like, he's been rumored to kind of just like he's been rumored for the last couple of seasons, like, oh, he's out. But I feel like another disappointing postseason can kind of accelerate that and maybe even make it a reality.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the problem is, even if he gets like a win this postseason, it's still not enough. This team is, every year, it's Super Bowl or bust. Like the Yankees with baseball. It has to be this and that. It has to be championship or else it's a failure. And obviously that should be the mentality for most teams in the NFL. But being that as it may, you got a position where Jerry Jones, listen, let's face the facts. He's getting up there in age. He wants to win one more championship. And right now, if Dak cannot get it done for them, they might have to look for quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen as of this season, but I think it is getting closer and closer. So there's a strong possibility Dallas could be a quarterback market maybe in a couple years.
Maybe we see Baker Mayfield there in the cheap. Maybe I just jinxed and gave a cursed image
Well,
to everyone.
if I'm telling you,
Alrighty then.
if you're going from Dak to Baker, you're not winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, probably not. But hey, who knows? Crazier things have happened.
Yeah. I'll do a quick recap of this next game because there's not much to talk about the game itself. The Giants got embarrassed in this one by the Raiders. First, head coach Antonio Pierce, the interim, great job for him. I feel happy for him, the former Giants linebacker that won a Super Bowl in 07 with us. And the big story of this game really wasn't about what the Raiders did. I mean, listen, they played a phenomenal game. Josh Jacobs went off. Aiden O'Connell had his first ever start officially as starting quarterback. He did all right for the job. But the big story of this game was what happened with the Giants, and that was Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones returned in this one from injury, first start back, and gets injured early on in the game, and it's a big, serious injury because he tears his ACL in this one. He's now out for the rest of the season. Who knows what his status for next season will be? And remember, next season is a big year because that is going to be the second year of that fully guaranteed deal. So people are starting to question, is this the last time we see Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback of the New York Giants, or just even in a Giants uniform as it is? Because now this team drops to 2-7. They're right now picking fourth in the draft if the season ended today. They are in prime position to potentially get their new starting quarterback in this upcoming NFL draft if they choose to go that way. And you got to think about it too, with Tyrod Taylor now probably going to be out for a while. He's currently on the IR. It's going to be Tommy DeVito right now as the starting quarterback, potentially Matt Barkley. It's really bad times for this team as a general, but like I said, the big story now is this the last time you potentially have seen Daniel Jones in a Giants uniform, and where do they now go from here?
I don't know where they go from here. I don't want to say you should get rid of him, but
If you're in the spot to
I
draft
feel like it's
a
time to get rid
quarterback,
of him.
I think the point is if you're in the position to get Caleb Williams or Drake May, I don't see the Giants passing it up. But if they miss out on both of them, then you're looking at a different picture, and you're saying, you know what, you probably just get Marvin Harrison if you can hope to get him or someone else in the draft, and then go from there. But I don't know. There's still a lot of teams ahead of them. The Cardinals are 1-8. The Panthers are 1-7. The Bears are 2-7, and the Bears and Panthers are playing each other this upcoming weekend, or this upcoming week, I should say. So the Giants, who even knows? Because they could easily. I feel like as if you win one game, you potentially knock yourself out of that QB race. But I think with Tommy DeVito starting, I just don't see a scenario in which the Giants have a chance to win a game the rest of the season.
So the Giants are going to tank, and
Yeah,
let's say they can get Caleb Williams. Would you want him? Like, let's be real. Like,
I
he
wouldn't
has some
mind
question
Caleb
marks.
Williams.
He has some question marks about him now.
The question marks I think are mostly because I think the problem for Caleb Williams is, and we'll talk about this in our college football show this week as well, but you're also overlooking the fact for Caleb Williams because he's putting up numbers. The problem is USC is not doing what they expected to do this season. That's mostly due to their defensive struggles they've also had. Is Caleb Williams throwing, some bad, throws most of the games? Sometimes. But he's still, doing flashy plays. He's a really good runner. He has a really good arm. He could be a really big asset to any NFL team that potentially drafts him. I think the issue would be, depending on what team you go to, is offensive line issue, especially if you're going to the Giants. That's obviously been a huge problem for them for a decade plus. You have one good offensive lineman. You're hoping maybe John Michael Schmitz could do something, and who even knows what's going on with Evan Neal. He got injured again this week. He's probably going to be out again, and he can't play right tackle. So even if even if he were to go to the Giants, it's still not a good spot in terms of offensive line. They would have to fix that in order to make Caleb Williams look good. But on the other flip side of it, the problem I think for the other teams above the Giants are they're also in a spot where do they even take a quarterback? I think Arizona is locked into Kyler Murray. I think with him now coming back this week, I think they'll want to build the franchise around him. Carolina just drafted Bryce Young. They're not going to draft the quarterback. The big question mark is going to be the Chicago Bears, in my opinion, because they currently hold picks 2 and 3. what do you do with Justin Fields? Do you want to keep him and build around him, get Marvin Harrison and a tackle in the draft? Or do you say, you know what? Let's trade Justin Fields, get some assets, and then draft a new quarterback in this upcoming draft, which would be, in my opinion, Caleb Williams. So there's a lot of question marks when the draft comes up. And once April hits around, I think that's going to be a very good worthy thing to see what happens, because the Bears were the talk of the town last season, and that's what they did with the number 1 pick, trading down to Carolina. They might do it again this year, but we don't know.
Now, that's a great question because they have the opportunity to maybe take Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. for Bears.
Right.
So this is all going to depend on what the Bears do, and it's going to be exciting. But I think if the Giants were going to commit to Caleb Williams, they need to trade into the first round. They need to buy a late first round pick.
Well, they would
take the offensive tackle from BYU, pair him up because you can get gem offensive linemen in the late first round. Not unheard of.
See, the problem for the Giants is if they don't get the number 1 pick, they're not going to get Caleb Williams. They would potentially might have to trade up to get Caleb Williams.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I'm saying in the best case scenario, like that's the world where that is the best case scenario for the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, the season's been chalked. I mean, they had hope after the Jets game potentially if they were to win that game, but then they obviously choked at the end, and then this game was an utter disaster against the Raiders. They made the Raiders defense look insane, and I think you have to evaluate the rest of the season, because you have to evaluate what players are going to stay, what players are going to go. We know Saquon Barkley is a free agent at the end of the year. They obviously would like to bring him back. They've said it. They want to resign him. They also didn't trade him at the trade deadline because they wanted to try to get a contract done. So that's another question they have going into the offseason as well. But I think the moral of the story is going to be what now happens at QB. Will they go in the draft and get someone? Do they say, you know what, we'll just get a bridge quarterback for next season and just, chalk up the Daniel Jones experiment? Because I think personally, this might be for me personally, I think that was the last time we've seen Daniel Jones in a Giants uniform.
That'd be crazy after the last season too.
I don't think we see him again. I think the Giants will be in the point. I truthfully believe the Giants will be picking in the top 2 this upcoming draft.
Well, that's a bold statement.
Because I'm telling you right now, the Cardinals I could see winning a couple, like 2 or 3 games because Kyler Murray's back. He provides something for that offense. And with Carolina and Chicago, one of them's going to win this week, so that will cancel out and give a team either the second or third win. So that's all over the Giants really would have to happen. I think the Giants, and I just don't see a game in which they win. There's no way they're going to win with Tommy DeVito. It's just impossible. This offense is anemic without a quarterback, and Saquon can only do so much. And by that point, there could be questions of him getting injured at some point because of him getting run into the ground, or you tried not to get him fully injured for future years because you want to resign him, so you maybe shut him down for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that.
Well, only time will tell. And let's go into our next game, almost our final game we have here on the schedule. And I really want to talk about this game. I'm excited because
I know you are.
Once again, Joe Burrow has beaten Josh Allen.
He has.
Hasn't happened once. Hasn't happened twice. Third time's the charm? Nope, not for Josh Allen. I would say 4th time's the charm because they should have beat him in the game where DeMar Hamlin went down. They were going to beat him that game too, but I guess it would be a 4-0 asterisk. I can put an asterisk next to 4-0, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But Josh Allen, when the lights are shining brightest most, he needs to silence the doubters, silence the critics. Can't go over the hump. And if Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are the second best team in the AFC again, Josh Allen's playing for 3rd place again. He's not playing for an AFC championship game. He's playing for another loss to Patrick Mahomes.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the Bills are right now in the spot, Johnson, where if the season ended today, they would not even be in the playoffs.
It'd be the AFC North teams. You're right.
The AFC North has locked up all of the wild card spots right now. Now, there's no way those teams will all make the playoffs. There's going to be 1 or 2 of those teams that don't make it.
There'll be 2 that don't make it. This is like the AFC East a couple of years ago, if you remember.
Right. They have to cancel it out. There's no way it's going to work out in both of their favors. But the problem for the Bills has been most of what's been happening all season. They have been a really bad first half team. And it showed again in this one. They had a chance to go down one possession going into halftime, but Josh Allen had an intentional grounding call that got a 10-second runoff, and it cost them a chance to hit a field goal to make it a one-possession game going into the half. So their first half struggles have been costing them this season. And every single game that they've had to they played, they've had to come back and try to make it a game. Some of those games they've been able to win, but in this case, this was another one where it was just too little too late. And they fell again, and now they dropped to 5-4 in the season. They've only won one road game on the entire year. They're now 1-3 on the road. And for the Bengals, they've now won 4 straight, and this is what we talked about. They're starting to get hot at the right moment. Credit, it could be a little bit too early, but after the start they had, they need to go on this stretch. T. Higgins had a monster game. Joe Burrow has looked electric these last couple of weeks as well, looking like the Joe Burrow we've seen throughout these past couple of seasons. And now they're 5-3, and as we mentioned, if the season ended today, would be a wild card team. And if not for the Ravens having such a great season, could be in first place in the AFC North. But they also have a very fun game upcoming this weekend against the Houston Texans. That could be a high-scoring matchup, to say the least, for those two. But for the other side, for the Bills, like I said, I think they have to figure out something offensively, because and this is going to be huge, if they lose to Denver this upcoming Monday night, then the panic really is going to set in Buffalo, because then you'll drop
It would
to
be
5-5.
insane if they lose to Denver.
I think there's a strong possibility it could happen. They have to. Their offense is just. I don't understand what's gone on. It's been bad play calling. Allen's throwing picks this season as well. I think he has now 9 interceptions on the season after throwing one this game.
Remember, he leads the league in in turnovers by a quarterback since 2019.
Right. I mean, listen, we knew we had a turnover problem, but this has been...
Josh Allen is famous Jameis with better marketing.
Well, he's not throwing 30 picks in the season.
I know he's not, but you know how Jameis had that turnover problem?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah, he's acting like Jameis with better marketing right now. To me, that's what he's like.
Yeah, I think the Bills, they have. I think this is a must-win game for them this coming Monday night. Because here's the thing: the good thing for the Bills is that everyone in the AFC East lost, so there's still a game out of first place in the division. So they still have a chance to win the division, but a loss to Denver, that would really hurt them, because they can't afford to lose a game like that, because then you drop to 5-5. Then there's going to be even more question marks than answers throughout the season. The good thing for them is that there's not really much competition, I would say, in terms of a team trying to swipe one of the wild card spots away, even though they're on the outside. I'd say they have the best probability out of the outside teams to make it as a wild card compared to teams like the Jets. Maybe the Texans are for real. I still can't get a gauge of what they are, and who knows what the Raiders are going to do with Antonio Pierce now as the head coach. They looked really good this week, and they continue to do that. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs as well.
Let's stick with the pain and suffering in New York State, and let's talk about the New York Jets now.
Yeah, I know you enjoyed this one too.
I mean, I fell asleep during this game. That's neither here nor there.
Well, to be fair, the Jets' offense also was asleep during this game.
But from what I remember, this game, the first half, it was all Chargers, and not Chargers in a good way. It was all Chargers. It was all Chargers because the Jets couldn't do anything on offense.
Well,
defense got multiple stops, and
here's the funny thing about this game. The funny thing about this game is, if you look at the end of the stats for this one, the Jets had more first downs than the Chargers did, had better time of possession than the Chargers did, and they held Justin Herbert to 136 yards passing. And you would think, oh, maybe that's because the running game did something for the Chargers. Austin Eckler might have had 2 touchdowns, but he only had 47 yards rushing. The Jets' defense played good again. The score might not indicate that because they gave up 27 points, but one of those touchdowns was a punt return. And that sucked the life out of the stadium. Once the punt return happened, the Jets knew they were in trouble. And going into this game, I was talking to someone about this. I said to them, if the Jets start off this game like they did against the Giants, where they start off very flat and they can't do anything offensively, they'll have no chance. Because this Chargers team has way more talent than the Giants do, and they're better offensively schemed. And it showed in this one, because if the Jets had any chance, they needed to have a strong offensive start, and they just didn't do it. Brees Hall had 50 yards rushing. Zach Wilson had had 49 passes, attempts, 33 completions, 263 yards, but was sacked 8 times in this game. And that's been an issue for Zach Wilson. Him holding on to the ball too long and taking sacks and costing his team yards and putting themselves into bad positioning. And now, this was a game a lot of people said that it was a must-win for them because every team lost. They could have been tied for second place with Buffalo. They actually would have been in second place due to the tiebreaker with Buffalo. A half game out of first place, or a game out of first place with the no, it would have been a half game. Sorry, a half game out of first place with the Miami Dolphins, with the Dolphins having their bye week this week, and them taking on the Raiders on Sunday Night Football this upcoming weekend. And they just fell flat. They just started off really poorly. Never got anything going offensively, despite getting more first downs and more better time of possession. And it's kind of what happened last season. Their offense is right now anemic. They can't get anything going. Now you have another primetime game upcoming this weekend. And again, it might be another must-win for them because another loss puts you at 4-5, and it gives a lot of these other teams a chance to jump up above you and take one of those wild card spots potentially.
Now let's talk about the comment Sauce Gardner made after the game, saying that he is a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. He's lost the locker room, right? With comments like that coming right after the game, he's 100% lost the locker room. Him being Robert Saleh.
Well, Saleh is in a bad spot too, also because you were hoping a lot of Aaron Rodgers to fix the offensive problems, and obviously him getting injured hurt. And you had to go back to Zach Wilson. And when they went on that 3-game win streak, it looked like maybe, there was hope again. They were 4-3, a big primetime game against the Chargers to try to prove your worth. And they just did nothing in this one. And now, if you're a Jets fan, you're once again hoping, and you're counting down the days, hopefully, for Rodgers to come back. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But if they continue to play like this offensively, they won't have a chance to win many more games the rest of the way and not give themselves a chance to give Rodgers, if he were to come back, a chance to get them into the postseason this year.
That'd be crazy if he does come back. I'm not sure if he's going to come back. Obviously, it would be unheard of. This would be unprecedented. These are uncharted waters we'll talk about.
The thing with it is like, I heard an initial rumor. They said maybe Christmas Eve. That's like maybe the hopeful date you would get him back. But even if it were to be that date, the Jets might not even be in the playoff position to have a chance, because can you realistically look at their schedule and say, you know what, I like them a lot in this game? They might be the favorite this upcoming week against the Raiders, but if the Raiders play like they played against the Giants, the Raiders are should win that game. And then they have to go to Buffalo, then they're home against Miami, and it won't get easier for them the rest of the way. So they need to figure something out sooner rather than later, because time is potentially running out for this team.
Now, how much time do you think they actually have left? Like, do they have to finish it in a game, 2 games, 3 games? How much time do you think they actually have left?
I feel like
they have to get it done by next game, or else they're done.
I really think this is the biggest game of the season now for them, because I really think if you drop to 4-5, then you have to go to Buffalo and then play Miami. You're looking at a potential of dropping to 4-7 quickly, and then that is at the point where that's it. The season's over.
And with that being said, before we go into our mushing hour, would you like to talk about anything else?
Well, we can talk about how we didn't have a terrible week last week in the NFL.
Oh, I was awful. I'm sorry. I went 3-4.
You were looking at your college football. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in our next show. College football was very rough for us this week, but we were all right this week in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, 4-2. 4-2 is not bad. I was looking at 2-6. 4-2 is respectable. I'll take that all day long.
I started 0-3, and then I thankfully the last 3 games saved me.
I really thought the over would have hit in that game. I thought the Jets could have scored 14 points. I thought they could get 14 points, man.
They couldn't do.
That's not a lot.
The Jets fans are at the point where they are grateful to get field goals. That's the problem right now.
I knew the Chargers were going to score like 20 points. I figured, all right, the Jets could score 20, right?
Well, jeez. I'm curious to see what they do, because they have another primetime game this weekend, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Johnson, for those that don't know, what does the mushing hour entail?
It's a play on the witching hour on Red Zone where losses become wins and wins become losses. Where we pick our favorite teams each week. Not our favorite teams, but we think the teams that are going to win. So we're going to give you the point spread or the over under, maybe even money line if it's close enough. But there'll be no picks like outlandish, like, okay, yeah, it's Cincinnati playing the Texans. Oh, yeah, I'm going to take Bengals money line even though they're -7. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a garbage
Right.
pick. We're going to give you, in games like that where it's -7 or like -10, something crazy like that, we're going to give you the spread. In games that's like, oh, -1, -2, maybe we'll go money line. Feel confident, not even take the points because it'd still be like a -120 pick. No garbage picks, only good picks only. And with that being said, our first game we have the Carolina Panthers on the road going into Soldier Field, historic stadium, to take on the Chicago Bears. Bears at home, -4 point favorites. 39.5 is the over under. Give me Bears -4. There will be no tweets from Seth Rollins this week saying I hate football. He's going to be very happy and satisfied after he just retained his World Heavyweight Championship last night on Monday Night Raw. And give me Bears -4.
I love a good old WWE plug during a football segment. So fun. Let's just face facts. These two teams are not good. The Bears are 2-7. The Panthers are 1-7. The Bears obviously own the Panthers draft pick, so the Bears pretty much win this game no matter who wins the game. In all fairness, I don't think Justin Fields is going to play either. But after what Bryce Young did on Sunday against the Colts, I'm not sure if I have any confidence right now in him going forward. So I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go Bears -4 as well. I don't like the pick at all. I just have no faith in either of these teams. It's going to be an ugly game on Thursday.
All right, the next game we have our international game happening in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Germany. I think it's Mercedes-Benz
It
Stadium.
is.
Correct me if I'm
Yep.
wrong. Okay, I got this one. I got this one right this weekend. International games. Let me go. Let's go. All right, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Technically the home team, kinda. I don't know who's the home team. But
The Patriots are technically the home team.
and this is why this is stupid because the Patriots have a home team in Germany. Everyone knows those German Patriots fans go wild there every single time they play there. Okay, now we have the Colts and the Patriots playing I'm going to call it a neutral site game in
Yeah.
Germany in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The Colts are -2 point favorites over under slate for 43.5. I am a Patriots fan, so fade me. Patriots money line. I don't care. That's my reasoning. I don't pick against my team.
Yeah, this is a game that I hate because I picked both these teams multiple times and they both have spurned me multiple times. So this will probably be one where it's because it's a Germany game. I wouldn't be too unhappy if I woke up too late to miss the start of it.
That's not
But
nice.
I'm just facing facts. This game's probably not going to be pretty as well. I'm gonna go with the Colts -2 in this one. They're in a spot where they still have a chance to make the postseason right now. A win gets them to 500. Jonathan Taylor is looking to be back into form. Minshew's a good enough quarterback to get them wins, and their defense, I think, will be just enough to hold on to this win. No
Oh,
offense.
okay. That's none taken. This team sucks. Anyways, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints going on the road, take on the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings, even though they're at home, are the underdog. Saints on the road, -2.5 point favorites, over under slated at 41.5. Give me Vikings +2.5. I'm sure the spirit of Kirk Cousins is with them in the locker room, led by Joshua Dobbs. I'm sure he's still playing Creed for them. Ever since they started listening to Creed, they're on a winning streak. So as long as they keep on playing Creed in that locker room, they're gonna keep on winning. So give me Vikings +2.5. Plus Derek Carr sucks.
This is fun. This is a fun game because the Saints right now, I think, are tied for first place, or maybe are they in full possession of first place in the NFC South?
They are in full.
Okay, yeah, because to be fair, the division's not good.
It's
Division's
garbage.
really bad. So this is a tough one because both these teams are in the playoff mix if the season ended today. This is a matchup where I wouldn't, going into the week, I was originally not going to put this on the schedule, but after what the Vikings did on Sunday, they have to be talked about. They've won 4 straight games since that bad start to the season. Josh Dobbs is now the quarterback, going up against Derek Carr. I'm looking at it as I think this might be a high scoring game. I think you could see the offense going up in this one. I'm going to go with the over in this one. I think it's tough for me to pick because I want to go with the Vikings, but I could see the slipper falling off the foot of a guy like the Cinderella story of Josh Dobbs, and the Saints defense just playing really good this week and just crushing his opportunity. But I just think both of these offenses come out to play in this one, and we see a nice competitive matchup between these two.
That's what's the great thing about football. You have heroes and villains, and sometimes the villains have to win, right?
And for reference, I hope the Vikings win because I hate the Saints.
Yep, Bounty Gate was a crime against humanity, and that's why Sean Payton is cursed, and so is that franchise now.
Pretty
Alrighty,
much.
Ben. Let's go into the next game. We have the Houston Texans led by notable rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud going on the road to Hul Davis, Cincinnati Bengals. Minus 7-point favorites at home. 48.5 is the slated over under.
This is gonna be a
C
fun one.
It's gonna be a fun one, and I think it's gonna be a shootout. I think the over is a safe bet here, but I'm gonna take Bengals -7 because Joe Burrow will lead the Bengals on a game-winning drive to put them up by 7, and CJ Stroud will not be able to answer, leaving 7 points on the board for them. So give me Bengals -7.
The matchup of two former Ohio State quarterbacks. If you remember, Joe Burrow technically did start at Ohio State before he went to LSU.
Yeah,
I
let's not
didn't.
talk about that.
Yeah, I know that's disgusting. I agree. Ohio State sucks. Anyway, man, what a fun matchup. You got the Bengals finally playing some good football. They won 4 in a row. The Texans, maybe they are for real. Maybe they can sneak in as a wild card this year. They're 4-4. CJ Stroud just had an unbelievable game this past week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I feel like a lot of people are going to take the over of this game because the Texans defense has been very iffy. The Bengals defense also has been very iffy. I honestly, Johnson, think this is going to be the under. I think the reason is a lot of people will want to take the over, and I think that will lead me to fading it because I think you could see another situation like Josh Dobbs where CJ Stroud doesn't have as great of a game as he did the week before. Maybe he throws for 2 touchdowns. Burrow does maybe the same, and they just don't reach that 50 mark. That 50-point mark at the end of the game. So I could see the under in this one, but knowing my luck, it's probably gonna be the over.
Alrighty, then we have our next game, and this is might be game of the week material over here. We
Maybe.
have the Cleveland Browns on the road going into MT&T Bank Stadium. Baltimore Ravens at home, -6-point favorites, 37.5 is the slated over under. AFC North divisional matchup. Give me Baltimore -6. The Ravens are on a hot streak and they're not going to be denied. They're going to keep on winning and winning and winning until they don't. So give me Baltimore -6 to cover this game.
This is a game with two of the best defenses in the league. Browns defense has been really good this year. The Ravens defense has been really good this year. Watson is playing for the Browns. He played the last game against the Cardinals. Lamar's playing at a great level right now, even with him not throwing a touchdown in his last game. So you've got some great things going for both these sides. They're both in the playoffs if the season ended today. And the Ravens, I did take the Seahawks last week to cover. They obviously did not cover in that one. I think the reason why I might take the Browns +6 is because of this being a divisional game. And I could very well see this being a possession in which Lamar has to drive them down the field to get a game-winning field goal for Justin Tucker. I know I said that last week for the Seahawks game, but this being a divisional game definitely could happen in this instance. So for me, I'm going to go with Browns +6. I think Cleveland is trying to prove that they are a for real team and could be in the postseason this year. And they're going to keep it close because of their defense. But I think Lamar and the company get the win, the last second field goal for Justin Tucker.
Alrighty, then. The next game we have the 49ers coming off their bye week on the road, going into Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. San Francisco on the road, -3-point favorites. 45.5 is the slated over under. Remember, they just got Chase Young.
Yep.
Chase Young, Nick Bosa,
They might have
Jack's
Debo
offense.
Samuel back.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Jack's offensive line, good luck. You're going to get eaten alive. Trevor Lawrence, I hope you brought your running shoes because you're going to need them. Give me 49ers -3. This really shouldn't even be a game.
Right. Uh, I think the biggest concern for this game, Johnson, is Brock Purdy. is he going to come back and step up after having that 3-game stretch of bad performances against the Browns, Vikings, and Bengals? You would hope that the bye week gets you back into that rhythm. I think if they get Deebo Samuel back, that will be huge for them because they have definitely have missed his presence these last couple of weeks without him. The Jaguars, I feel like they've been winning games, but they haven't been impressive wins. Like they've been beating good teams like the Bills they beat, the Steelers they beat, but they have been those games in
I don't
which
have a
they've
marquee
allowed
win.
it's been more. Not I won't even say that. I think it's more of the fact of they've allowed their opponent to try to come back into those games, but they've been able to sneak by at the very end. I don't think you could do that against the San Francisco 49ers, especially now we're getting Chase Young. I think that helps their defense a lot. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm also going to go 49ers -3. So for
We
the
have a
listeners at
mush.
home, yep. So I was going to say, for the listeners at home so far, you want to Carolina +4 and Jaguars +3.
All right, congratulations to the Jags on their probably help them seal up the division there at that point. Okay, we have the next game, the Lions on the road going into Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Chargers, even though they're at home, it's not going to feel like it because Lion Mania is going to be run wild on them.
Never thought I'd
Detroit
hear that
-2.
sentence.
I know, right? Detroit -2 point favorites on the road. 48.5 is the slated over under. Give me the Chargers to cover. The Lions have had some hiccups, getting shut out by the Ravens, and I feel like those hiccups are still going to be there. So give me Chargers +2.
My question for you is: I know you took the +2. Do you think they win the game, the Chargers?
I think they lose it because Brandon Staley is a moron. So get
That's why I'm not. He's the exact reason why I don't want to take the Chargers in this game. So I'm gonna go with Lions -2. I think it's gonna come down to head coaching. I trust Dan Campbell can be very questionable at times too, but I trust Dan Campbell more than Brandon
That's why I think
Staley.
it'll be close because Dan Campbell will live on the edge where Brandon Staley will be too conservative.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Lions coming off a bye week, their previous week. The Chargers just played on Monday night, so they're going to be technically on a short week, if you want to consider it a short week. But I think the Lions are just they're trying to prove something. They're trying to prove that they're the best team in the NFC and just one of the best teams in general. I think a statement win on the road against a Chargers team like this, who's starting to get a little bit of momentum these last 2 weeks, I think would be huge for their confidence. So I got the Lions win this one.
All right, we have two games left. The first of which being the New York Jets, Jets. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, I
On
don't
the
know why
road
he said
going
it.
into Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. The Raiders, even though they're at home, are +2 underdog. So it's New York Jets -2, and the over under is slated at 36.5. Give me Raiders +2. I think Sauce, Garrett Wilson, uh, Brees Hall, that entire young core is gonna have too much fun in Vegas. And give me Raiders +2.
This is tough because you look at the quarterback matchup we got. We got Zach Wilson and Aiden O'Connell. So O'Connell's going to be starting against this Jets defense that has been really good all season for them, and the Raiders defense just put up a really good performance against the Giants, and maybe that sparks something for the rest of the season for them. This I am having such a tough time picking this game because I kind of want to lean on the Raiders, but I don't even know if I'm confident picking the Jets as well. So, despite it being 36.5, I'm going to just take the under. I think right now the safest play for any Jets game at this point in the season is just taking the under because they cannot score. And I think this because it's a primetime game as well, it's going to be an ugly one. So, I'll take the under for this.
And with that being said, we have one more game. We have the Broncos on the road going into Orchard Park to take on the Bills. The Bills at home, -7.5 point favorites, over under slated at 46.5. Buffalo will get it done and not only win but cover. I'm taking Buffalo -7.5. Buffalo, this is your chance to kind of shake off those cobwebs, get going. This could be a good startup game, a good reboot game for you guys, and make that playoff push by beating the Broncos. You need to beat the Broncos. If you do not beat the Broncos, they are in desperate times because their schedule towards the end of the year is a brutal one. They still have to play the
Right.
Chiefs, Eagles, and the Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken, all
Yep.
in the next 5 weeks.
I believe you are correct.
So this is do or die time, and if you don't do it now, you're gonna die. So give me Buffalo -7.5.
Well, think about the other side for this one. The Denver Broncos coming off their bye week, and we know what happened the last time they played. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs, ending that 16-game losing streak. And the Broncos, I talked about it the last time. I said if they were able to get a big time upset against the Bills, you would have to start considering them to potentially be a playoff contender, potentially getting one of those wild card spots. I think Buffalo wins this game, but I think Denver's going to keep it close. So I'm going to go Broncos plus 7.5 in this one. I think it's a scenario in which Buffalo has been playing really poorly in the first half. I think I think it's going to happen again, unfortunately, because I think if Denver plays like they did against the Chiefs, they're going to give Josh Allen a tough time there. But I still think, just from looking at both sides of the ball, the Bills are still better offensively schemed than Denver is, and I just think the Bills, like we mentioned, it's a must. It's pretty much a must win. It looks like at this rate for them, they have to win this game, or else the panic button is certainly going to be hit in Buffalo going into week number 11.
And that will conclude our mushing out. Nick, before we sign off on the night, any final comments to close out the evening?
It's crazy. We're at the halfway point in the season now. It feels like we just started the NFL season just as of yesterday, and now week 9's in the book. Now we're going to week number 10. I still don't know who the best teams are. I know we say it every week.
No, now we really have no idea, because even the good teams look bad now.
I know. We talked about Baltimore potentially being the best team right now going forward, but knowing our luck, they probably falter this week against Cleveland. And then we're back here next week trying to question ourselves as to who is right now one of the best teams, or if the best team in the entire National Football League. So who knows?
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, but any final thoughts from yourself?
Patriots, please win.
For your sake, hopefully. But we're both you and I are both 2-7 on the season.
I'll see you at the Tank Bowl in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yeah, we the All Gas No Break Sports Show might be going to MetLife Stadium to watch the Patriots and Giants, and what would be an absolute atrocity.
It'll be the Marvin Harrison Jr. Bowl.
Yeah, and the Patriots most likely will win because the Giants have no offense going right now.
Don't you jinx me like that.
Just telling you, but then again, knowing my luck, Giants will win the game. They'll ruin the tank for whoever they'll try to take in this year's first round of the NFL draft. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. As we mentioned, we're at the halfway point of the season. Week 9 is in the books. Now heading into week number 10. We're still trying to figure out who are the best teams in the NFL. We're starting to get maybe a little bit of a gauge as to who those teams are. But knowing our luck, next week we'll probably be saying the same exact thing going into our preview for the next week, being that week 11. So we'll have to find out and see. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.